Father Charles Angelo Liteky. That's how we knew him. We knew him as Father Liteky. He was our chaplain in the 199th Light Infantry Brigade, and I can recall 3 conversations I had with the man in the time I was in Vietnam. So I guess I will claim that I knew him, if that qualifies, having 3 conversations with him. But the first time I met him was my first week in Vietnam, and I went by his. I was walking one night, and he was in his tent. He had a 16 by 16 wall tent, and that served as his chapel. And I expect you heard a lot of confessions in that chapel from the Catholic GIs. But I heard him playing his guitar. I used to play guitar or something, so I poked my head in, and he invited me to come in and sit down. So I sat down. We had a very pleasant conversation, and he had electricity. We had gasoline-powered generators to. We didn't have air conditioning in our base, but we did have a light bulb when we had power, and he had power in his tent, and he had a small refrigerator like a college student might have, just a small miniature fridge, and he said, "Would you like a beer?" He threw open the door of his refrigerator. I think he had some of that on a 3-2 beer, half-strength beer, the kind they served us in the EM club, enlisted men's club. He had some in his refrigerator. I felt it was kind of strange, a Catholic priest offering me, a Protestant guy, some beer. I never had a Catholic priest offer me a beer. I don't know why that seems strange to me. I think I turned him down on that one. but I didn't realize the man that he was. He was truly every bit a great man, every bit. It was in that same year in 1967, in December of 67, that he went out on patrol, as he did numbers of times, unarmed. He went out on patrol unarmed with some of the GIs, and he was with a group from Charlie Company, a 4th of the 12th Battalion, and they came under fire. And this was in December of 1967, the same month we were in. And they came under fire, and he rescued a number, carried them back to a medic where they could be treated, carrying at least one man that was reported on his chest. Liteky crawled on his back, carrying this man on his chest. Father Liteky was a former college football player, a former college quarterback. But as I heard the story, the man he was carrying was heavy set, so he had to put him across his chest and move on his back to get him to the medics. He rescued many Americans. I don't know how. He was awarded the Medal of Honor. This shows him with the Medal of Honor. That was after he came back from the U.S. The last conversation I had with him was in March of 1968, and I went to his new chapel. He had a new frame chapel. The engineers had just built him a new frame chapel. He seemed to be very happy in his new chapel, and I just had a brief conversation with him. I think he was aware then that he was going to be nominated for the Congressional Medal of Honor, which he did get, but I don't think he wanted it. If this book is about his life, because he returned the Medal of Honor as an act of war protest, not about Vietnam, but about the Reagan administration policies in Nicaragua in 1986. That gets into the 1980s, and the war opposition of that time wasn't Vietnam, but it was the Reagan administration policies regarding the Iran-Contras, and that's another piece of American history to be read about. But he was in opposition. He was now out of the priesthood and out of the army, and he returned the Medal of Honor as a protest. And there's a picture of that in the book. If I won't show it because it's not going to be possible to show right now, but this is a book written about his heroism. I would recommend this, about Charles Liteky and his returning the Medal of Honor. Then he became a war protester, and spent the last year of his life as a pacifist, protesting wars. And I'm not in favor of awards for valor being returned for any reason. Certainly not the Medal of Honor, which is considered the most highly honored military award of any. As I read of it, I think Father Liteky, or Charles Liteky, is one of two Medal of Honor recipients who have returned them. Others have not. I hope they don't, because I don't want to see it returned. On the other hand, I respect the man because he did what he believed was right for him to do. He went into combat, then he helped others, and he became a war protester, and that's how he ended his life. He died I heard that he died in January of 17. I did not feel like I could talk about him while he was living because I didn't know that he wanted anybody to talk about him. I did have some minimal communication with some people that knew him after Vietnam, after his service, after he got out of the Army. And I got the impression from them that maybe that Liteky didn't want anybody to talk about him. He did not want to draw attention to himself. That was he was not that kind of person.